Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with the Audrey Helps Actors podcast, and this is episode number 96. Feeling like you're gonna give some roundhouse kicks to your acting career? Are you addicted to success? I am. Give me that sweet, sweet serotonin hit of success. Today we have Leigh Hall. Leigh Hall is a licensed therapist who was an actress for 20 years. She has many actors and creatives as clients, something you can hear all about in our first episode with Leigh, episode number 80, titled Radical Acceptance. So if you've not heard that episode, you may want to swoop-de-doop over to episode 80 and listen to that, and then come back and swoop-de-doop over here and listen to this one. But also, if you don't want to, it's fine. This episode holds up all on its own. Today, we are going to discuss the choice between being special and being happy. Can I be happy without someone validating that I'm special at all times? We'll find out. All right, it's getting close to Self-Tape May. This year, we're not having a leaderboard, but we are having a progress board where you can see everyone who's participating and what markets they're in and all the good stuff. That's also kind of what makes it really fun. And the good news is this year, it's all going to be automated. Woo, woo, woo. We love it when we don't have to do things because the computer is going to do it. Just register once at selftapemay.com, enter your Instagram account, and you'll be up on the board in May. Woohoo! I love May! Also, for extra credit this year, Lord of the Rings! You guys are as excited as I am about Lord of the Rings, and that is thrilling if you don't know what I'm talking about. Every year I give a little encouragement of some theme, something that you can do your tapes for, and this year it's Lord of the Rings. Last year we got a lot of Witcher performances because I just love The Witcher, and this year, Lord of the Rings, I dare you to be a tree. I dare you. You don't have to do Lord of the Rings. You can do whatever you want. You can do commercials. You can do voiceover. You can do television. You can do film. You can do theater. You can do whatever you want. Whatever you want to practice. I would love to see your musical theater. But if you want to do Lord of the Rings, I highly encourage it. And more good news, the review baby is being fed. Yum, 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 yum. And the people feeding the review this week are Frasier fan Gigi June, Evie in San Francisco, Doc Wiggs, Google Mayo, Ian Ryder, Greg Jr., 808 Share, Nobu J, and Bella Stella. Thanks so much to all those people who left reviews. I appreciate you. Please go to ratethispodcast.com/Audrey. That's ratethispodcast.com/Audrey to
feed the review. Bye.
This week's podcast is brought to you by Casting Networks. That's castingnetworks.com/Audrey and use promo code Audrey60 for $60 off a premium annual membership. Did John Noble Barrick go ahead and get some delicious alcoholic beverages with his $60 savings? He sure did. He took a little snappy shot of that, and then he posted it, and he tagged me in it, and I reposted it because it warms my heart when you save $60. Speaking of saving money on things that are awesome, shout out to Peter Hargrave. That's Peter Hargrave. You know, he reached out with the most lovely message, and he said, Audrey, I am in Lion King, the musical. I am playing Scar. I would like to invite you and Jesse to come to the musical and to watch me be fantastic. I mean, he didn't say watch me be fantastic, but he was fantastic. He is fantastic. You guys, I am a whore for musical theater. I am a whore for musical theater. So thank you so much, Peter Hargrave. Somebody's definitely going to take that whore little clip and turn it into a something. Looking forward to it. All right, everyone, I hope you're on the way to an audition / setting up a self-tape / that you get a phone call today with great news telling you booked it.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with the Audrey Helps Actors podcast, and today I have one of my most favorite guests.
Hi, everybody. I am Leigh Hall. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Former actress.
Former actress, yes.
Yes.
Reformed actress.
Reformed actress. I like that clarification. People have brought up your episode, and I thought, gosh, we have to have Leigh back on. And then this article came into my life. This is an article by a wonderful author, Arthur C. Brooks.
Social scientist, social economist.
Right, over at Harvard. And so this article is called Success Addicts, Choosing Being Special Over Being Happy. And the title alone, Choosing Being Special Over Being Happy, bit of a horrific reflection, I would say. And the reason I found the article actually was because I was thinking about my day. And I had this thing that I wanted to do to just feel better about the day. And then I had this other part of Audrey that was like, no, go do these things on some random to-do list, which is this never-ending and self-constructed mechanism of shoulds.
Yes.
And so I looked at that and I thought, why is that? And I realized it was because the thing that I wanted to do to feel better today, there was no sense of accomplishment in it. There was no like, and I achieved. And then I thought, why is it I can only do something if it is attached to achievement? So I Googled it, and this article popped up. So I sent you the article, and
Love it.
you immediately responded that this was a really powerful topic. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and this writer, Arthur C. Brooks, has a whole series, as you may have seen when you found the article, in The Atlantic that's called like How to Build a Life or something like that. And all of the articles are great. So if anyone's interested in reading them, really
30-day
great.
free trial, everyone.
Yeah.
30-day free trial.
And I love that example that you provided. Why is it that I feel the need to check a box, as opposed to the thing that nobody would necessarily be impressed by, but that would actually feed my soul or bring me some needed rest or joy or whatever it is. And if you are in the creative fields and maybe haven't yet reached the level of success that you would like to, or even if you have, you can feel like you need to be doing those things 24/7.
Yes.
Because if you're not, you're never going to get there, because there are a million other people out there who are doing these things 24/7.
Yes.
And that you have to fuse with your identity as a creative person, as a performer, as an actor, or as a scientist or a doctor or academic, whatever it is. And the struggle is often burnout, a feeling of emptiness, an inability to turn the mind off.
When I think about it in my own life, one of the things that I come up against now is this sort of a strange place that I found my body and mind living in, where I have built my career. I have lots of very strong relationships with creatives. I have fantastic relationships with representation. I have residual income that keeps me on some sense of steadiness. I have this podcast, which keeps me involved and engaged very actively in the community. It is reasonable to assume that if I just continue and not become a massive asshole in the process, that more or less I will continue to work. That the really ravenous, panicked hustle habits of my maybe 20s to early 30s that did serve in the progress and career that I am now sitting upon. And it is confusing in my body and in my mind because that hustle part, continually trying to climb, is not really necessary. Especially if we're looking at what is the goal. Is the goal being a working actor? And if I am, in fact, a working actor and can reasonably believe I will continue to be, that's a sort of a strange place that I found my body and mind living in. And they talk about that in the article, this sort of Sisyphean experience of success.
That hedonic treadmill, right?
Yes.
What feels like a road to nowhere, but you just keep running, because if you stop running, what's going to happen? First of all, I love that you mentioned your body, because this stuff lives in the body.
It does.
And is an important part of it, I think. I also love that you mentioned that it served you at one point. So the hustle, the 24/7, is part of the reason that you're now a working actor with all of these accomplishments and things that you've got going on for yourself. So the lesson that your body, your nervous system, and your mind learn from that is that this is what's necessary. And once you get on that hedonic treadmill, once you start rolling that rock up the hill, it is very difficult to stop, because your body and your mind have, in a sense, gotten addicted to it. And there are some true similarities. The role of dopamine in all of this, for example, is very similar. So every time you have an accomplishment, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. Dopamine is, as most people know, the feel-good chemical. What a lot of people don't realize is that dopamine doesn't actually hit the system when you accomplish the thing. It hits the system in anticipation of accomplishing the thing, or in anticipation of the reward. So you can then imagine, if you think about someone who's addicted to gambling, right? So they're at, let's say, the slot machine. Every time they hit the button, dopamine hit, because they're anticipating reward. And then even if they get the reward, then the dopamine's gone.
I was just going to give you the quote in this article. Imagine reading a story titled The Relentless Pursuit of Booze. And he goes on to say, that's a depressing article about the relentless pursuit of booze. And instead, if you were to read a story titled The Relentless Pursuit of Success, that you would expect to find a really inspiring article.
Exactly.
And then he goes on to discuss it as a form of addiction.
Yeah. And I do think that helps explain why on that treadmill that doesn't necessarily feel good overall, feels good in these moments that just keep you going.
Yeah. And then again, I think we then have to have a really honest conversation with ourselves about then what is the intention.
Yeah.
Right? I love talking to you because we could just like nerd out all day. It's just like so
Totally.
much fun. But yes, the acknowledgement that it's about the anticipation of the reward, I think then also hits an interesting space for actors, because if then the booking gives diminishing rewards compared to the imagination of the reward that the booking will give you. And then in addition to the rejection is felt so much deeper than the bookings, because we feel our losses so much greater than we feel our wins. Then I hope people can see why it takes a lot of mental and emotional fortitude, flexibility, resilience, mastery even maybe, to continue the pursuit of a career in acting, or we could say arts, in late-stage capitalism in America. And what I hope it does for others is it gives me some self-compassion.
Yes. And the self-compassion piece, I think, is so important too, because people achieving the success that they've been working for so long, and then it feels empty. And then what can happen is they then judge themselves and are like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I appreciate this? Why am I not happy? And it creates, lately in my sessions, I keep bringing up something that I refer to as the onion of suffering. It's just these like layers of pain on pain.
Yeah.
When,
it's a good book title, Leigh.
Yes,
The Onion of Suffering. I like it.
And I'm always like, can you just at least peel off that top layer of the self-judgment, and knowing what's happening in your system, understanding the external forces, the dopamine, the emotional addiction, all of that can help you, like you said, have that self-compassion of, this is happening to me because I'm human.
To me, it goes a little bit spiritual. I apologize to everyone in advance. I'm not like a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And one of the religious sayings is doing anything outside of the pursuit of God or the love of God or something like that is like an empty pursuit. And I always interpret that as in, if my motivation is greed or domination, it's sort of these empty motivations versus things that I love of beauty, love, compassion, creativity, these things that I think are godly personal experiences, then the rewards I found, can be empty.
Absolutely. What you're touching on, which is to me one of the most important things in talking to clients about what we call happiness. And I actually try not to even use that word happiness much because I think it creates a false expectation of what that even is.
And there's so much toxic positivity in
absolutely.
our culture too,
Yes.
of like, be positive, think positively.
Yes, exactly. Let a smile be your umbrella. But you're talking about the difference, I think, between core values, which to me are sort of spiritual, because when we talk about the core self, we're talking about something that can't be seen or held on to. It's not tangible, right? It is something spiritual. It's your spirit in a way. So your core values, which are what your core self truly care about, truly need to have in your life in order to feel fulfilled and purposeful and that your life has meaning, versus what, again, late stage capitalism or your parents or your peers or whoever it was told you you're supposed to have. And the rules, the shoulds, the like, I should have this much money. I should have this many followers. I should have this many credits on IMDb. All of those things, those are
toxic, I find.
Yep, absolutely. And if we live according to those, like you're saying, the pursuit is going to feel meaningless and getting those rewards is going to feel empty.
What I love that the word you had used earlier, which I think is really great for people, is curiosity. This sort of self-curiosity to have enough awareness of what your mind and body are, for me, sometimes whiplashing around, and then having some curiosity about where does that come from and whose voice is that? And is that needed? Is it necessary? And I hope that as people listen to this episode, that they go about their week, and as they get auditions or bookings or rejections or no auditions, which is own form of rejection, that they explore with curiosity how much of their happiness is tied to the success of the week. One thing that I do to trick myself, just in this sense of curiosity, is if I'm feeling particularly apocalyptic. My mom would say I'm known for drama. If I'm feeling particularly apocalyptic, my husband will say to me, essentially like, if you had booked that job last Friday, you wouldn't feel that way. And the reason you did or didn't book that job, you have no idea what that is. You could have not booked it because it was never yours to begin with. They were always going to give it to the wife of the director.
Right.
Your tape wasn't even watched, whatever, right? And he says, if you got that information, you would feel like, oh, I'm in with them, whatever. But because I'm sitting in this imagination of I should be doing better, I should be working harder, which, by the way, no one is accusing Audrey of needing to work harder except for
Audrey.
Me. Except for Audrey. Love it when I speak in the third person, especially on a podcast. So charming. And I have this sense of curiosity of like, I do think that's true and not healthy. And then, so what am I going to do about it? And this brings me into a topic about soothing and satisfaction, because happiness is not always attainable. And I don't believe as humans we're supposed to walk around being like happy all the time. But seeking a more consistent sense of satisfaction with my life experience, and in moments of hyperbolic thinking, of all or nothing thinking, of catastrophizing, that thinking about soothing thoughts, soothing possibilities, soothing comprehensions can be part of what can bring me back down to maybe a present moment, a present experience, and help me get off this treadmill that we're talking about.
Yep. And you're describing the basics of cognitive behavioral therapy there.
You know I love it.
Yeah.
CBT.
Yep. All the classic cognitive distortions, black and white thinking, catastrophization, right?
We probably have people who are listening who don't know about distortions.
What?
And I think they're so great for actors because we tend to have great imaginations.
Yes. These are so useful to know about for everyone. Basically, we all have core beliefs. And our core beliefs are these deeply rooted, long-held beliefs about ourselves, about others, and about the world. We have, quote, positive and, quote, negative core beliefs. And from our core beliefs stem our automatic thoughts. So if you have a core belief that you're basically not good enough, and, who knows where it came from, but it's been there for a long time and you're constantly trying to disprove it, you don't get a booking. And the thought is, I did a really shitty job at that audition, or I'm just really not a very good actor. And that's the basic thought that bubbles up. But as you're saying, that thought may or may not be based in any type of reality.
Often not reality, FYI.
Yeah. It's quite it's a judgment. First of all, it's not a fact. It's an assumption that you tend to leap to, especially as an actor, someone who does have to deal with a lot of rejection, right? And a lot of, am I good enough?
With a vivid imagination.
With a vivid imagination and the negativity bias. So the automatic thought comes up. And oftentimes our automatic thoughts take the form of particular what we call cognitive distortions, which are distortions of reality. Maybe they're 10% distortion. Maybe they're a 90% distortion. Who knows? But the point is, we think of them with great certainty, even though we rarely have all of the information that we need in order to think a thought with such certainty. But it feels very real to us because it's related to our long-held core belief. Some typical cognitive distortions are, like you mentioned, black or white thinking. So something is either all terrible or it's all great.
Right. I did a great job or I did a horrible job.
And there's no room for, I did a good job with this and I feel I could have done a little better there. And catastrophizing, which is assuming an event that feels painful or negative is a catastrophe. It's a disaster. My career is over. I'll never book another role again. That casting director saw my self-tape and was like, oh my God, and deleted it immediately and will never call me in again.
Called everyone and talked about how terrible you were.
Have you heard of this Audrey person?
Yeah, just what an embarrassment.
Yeah, and our minds will literally go there. I remember having a client telling me they were in the shower and they were sort of ruminating about some rejection. And it wasn't even a personal, like romantic rejection. But within a matter of like 30 seconds, her mind had literally gone to imagining herself at 85 years old, living alone on an island with some cats. That's how fast. Okay, it was me. But anyway.
I love it.
I caught it and I was like, holy shit. I had this vivid image of wandering around in sort of a nightgown in the house all alone at 85. And that's where my mind went as the result of not getting a booking or something.
Some examples I'd love to give to people as they're thinking about this all or nothing thinking and what you said about they're not facts. That has been really helpful to me to disentangle a lot of my catastrophizing, or as someone's parents might call it, being dramatic. And so
that's not judgmental.
It's fine. If you've gotten the feedback from your family your whole life that you're dramatic, it might be because you have a tendency to catastrophize, which is certainly one of my specialties. And part of how I've been able to detangle that is, here's the experience so everyone gets it. I'll send in a tape and I'll feel immediately amazing about it and so proud of myself. And then I'll have an adrenaline dump. And then I will feel immediately apocalyptic and embarrassed and think about the things I could have or should have, should, our favorite word, should, done differently, prepared myself for more success, understood, no, whatever, all pretend. And then I will ask myself, okay, what do I know? So this will be like maybe not in the immediate because I'm too entangled, but maybe a few days or a week later or whatever. And I'll say, what do I know? And I'll say to myself, okay, what I actually know is that I got this audition. I know that I worked it with these people and this thing, and I looked at it and I did the work that I did. And depending on how I approach that particular audition, I can either acknowledge to myself, okay, well, I think maybe there was room to approach it more advantageously. And why didn't I do that? And what can I do for the next time so that that doesn't happen? Or I approach that as advantageously as I know how to. And what I know is I haven't heard back. That is all that I know. And anything outside of that is make-believe.
Yep.
It's just pretend.
Yep.
And one of the most consistent answers when I ask people the question of what's the hardest thing about the industry for you is the lack of feedback, because it does allow our minds to go into all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing. Magnification is one of my favorite ones. Do you want to tell everyone about magnification?
Magnification is when you focus on perhaps a small negative thing and it's all you can see. It becomes much bigger than it actually is. You could think of it as the making a mountain out of a molehill cliche, whereas minimization is the opposite of that. When something positive happens and you dismiss it, you got the role, but it's just because you worked with that casting director before and they're so nice.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just so nice that they couldn't help but give you the part.
I just want to take like a hot shower in both minimization and magnification because they're both so familiar to me. But the desire to truly minimize the experience, I think because I've learned over the years, anytime I get too excited about myself, the degree to which I pop my collar and think I am special, as we talked about in this article, then the fallout on the other side of, oh, that was just a mistake. You're actually not special. It was just one in a million.
Fluke.
The disappointment is just around the corner.
And that's the thing, the up and down nature of these creative pursuits. Often what comes with that is the inability to even enjoy, say you book something really amazing and it feels good for a minute and there's that feeling in the back of your mind and then sometimes in the front of your mind that's like, yeah, but what's next? You can't even enjoy the successes because you're like, now I got to get back on that treadmill and hustle for the next one because I know that if I don't, this is going to be the last one.
And you're right. I booked a job yesterday.
Woo!
And I was excited for several minutes. And
several minutes.
Not just one, but several. And yeah, by the evening, I was like Googling, why does relaxation make me feel more anxious?
Love it.
So you can see.
Yeah, relaxation panic.
Relaxation panic, one of my favorite experiences.
Yes.
I blame genetics. Thanks, Mom.
But wait, Leigh, you new favorite friend of mine. Wait, I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Casting Networks. That's castingnetworks.com/Audrey. Promo code Audrey60 for $60 off a premium annual membership. Do you want to be a professional actor? Yes. Do you also love saving money? Yes. As a professional actor, Casting Networks is one of the things that you have to have for your agents and for yourself to submit you on. So I would love for you to save money on the thing that you have to have anyway. So go to castingnetworks.com/Audrey with promo code Audrey60 for $60 off a premium annual membership. All right, everyone, call us with your strike stories or questions at 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70.
Hi, Audrey. This is Jeff, Solvang, California. I'm 50 years old. I've been a dedicated actor that is dedicated to the craft since 96 when I finished college and got into the union and started going at it. I've invested totally in classes, scene study, improv, stand-up, etc., writing, shooting films, but it's always been a financial struggle for me, so I've always been on my heels and haven't been able to invest and get into the business part of it. You've inspired me so much. I've had to take a full-time job to get out of debt, which I am now. So my question is, when I dive back into it, do I go back to LA where I've spent 20 years, or do I get back on my feet in Albuquerque? I've been investigating classes, improv, etc. Also, for the first time, I'm going to get top-notch headshots. I'm thinking Dana Patrick, and I'm going to get a reel that is in line with my talent and my artistic direction. You've absolutely convinced me of that. Anyway, those are my questions. Thank you again for all you and Jesse do. Cheers.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much for calling. Congratulations on getting your money together. That is such an important thing and getting yourself out of debt. This is a complicated question to answer because I don't know you personally, and so I don't know sort of where your passions lie. There's a link that you can find down below that I have of like a triangle of momentum. It's a triangle of momentum graph, and it talks about
your market plus your skills plus your passion. So one of the things about New Mexico is obviously it is a smaller market and it is a much cheaper market. That also means that you're not going to get paid as well as an actor in Los Angeles is, but your cost of living is going to be much lower. If you're looking at a long-term goal of making tons and tons of money as an actor, New Mexico is a challenging place to do that in just because they don't really cast actors in the larger roles in local hire situations. There are exceptions to that, but by and large, the larger roles are cast out of Los Angeles and New York City, or they're cast with stunt casting of name actors. That said, there is certain kinds of projects that generally film in New Mexico. Obviously, Westerns, things that take place in New Mexico. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are great examples. A lot of gritty things that take place in the desert with gritty people. So because I don't know you, I can't tell you whether or not that's the best market for you. There is also something to be said for being the only option in a market. So if you go to a smaller market and there aren't a lot of people in your age category that look like you, even though there may not be a ton of roles for you, if you're the go-to person in your category in that market, that will work very well for you. However, if you are interested in making a real long-term go at this, and you are in Solvang, now most things can be done through tape. Solvang is not that far away. If you want to get some headshots in Los Angeles, continue to build income and have your money together, and do casting director workshops online and seek representation in Los Angeles, also depending on your casting, that really may be the best financial decision for you and might also be the best professional decision for you. So I hope everyone can see that when it comes to which market to choose, there's a lot to consider. The finances are one thing to consider. The types of stories that are being told in your market is another thing to consider. And then the cost of moving to another market versus the return of investment over time on moving to that market. Please go ahead and listen to Christina Colgan's first episode from last season. We talk about market research, and that's a great way to understand a little bit more in depth of what I am discussing. All right. I hope that was helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I really want to get back to this conversation. I think it's really big, Leigh, which is about, it's not your core beliefs, you said your core values.
Yeah.
Ooh, can we talk about core values? Because I think this is the biggest thing since reading this article that I'm having to navigate my day through, being curious about my motivation of how I spend my time as an actor. Am I going to spend my time reading scripts out of some sense of, look at me, I'm so special because I'm working so hard, versus I'm really curious about what's happening now. I really want to see what maybe this network is doing or what this director greenlit. I really like their work. And honestly, even if it's after I read scripts, I feel better. I feel maybe a sense of information, inspiration, clarity, any of that, and even accomplishment. I think that's okay.
Yes.
But what is my motivation for that action versus I'm going to maybe go have lunch with a friend and catch up? And there's no achievement unlocked by having lunch with that friend. It's just, I want to see them. They're fantastic people. And every time I leave, I feel like so seen and heard and have a good time, which I think then goes into core values. I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah. So again, core values are the things that truly bring us a sense of meaning and fulfillment when we are doing our best to live in alignment with them. And no one's perfect. You're not necessarily going to feel like you're in alignment with them 100% of the time, but we do our best. And values have no endpoint. They're not goals. Values are like a direction that you travel in, and there's no end to it. And goals are sort of rest stops along the way. So if you value creativity, writing a screenplay might be a goal that is on the way in the direction of the value of creativity. So one way that can make it clear to you whether a goal or an action is in alignment with your core values or not is this proof in the pudding thing of, well, I did it. How do I feel? So say you have an audition for something, you read the script because you're like, I have to prepare. That's a rule, right? I should, I have to. This is an accomplishment. I can check off my list and say, yes, I'm prepared. So you dive in, you read the whole script, and then all your automatic thoughts bubble up, and then you feel worse. And then you go into the audition feeling like, what am I even doing here? I'm such an imposter. Whereas you prepare adequately, let's say, and then you go out to lunch with your friend instead of staying home and reading the script. The conversation lights you up. You feel connected. You remember how great it is to feel that, to be alive in the world, to eat lunch. And then you go to the audition and you're like feeling like a human, fully fledged human being with things other than just your acting career that light you up. And maybe going out to lunch with your friend counterintuitively would have been the more effective thing to do. So it's not that being prepared can't be a part of your core values. It could be. But again, really paying attention to what are the outcomes of this action.
It makes me think about something I wanted to talk to you about, which is when we were talking about addiction and alcoholism and how the pursuit of drinking, the relentless pursuit of a drink, that if alcohol is getting to a point where it is hindering your life, that's part of how you know you have a problem.
Exactly.
And listeners are well aware of my brother dying of alcoholism 2015. So it's a good frame of reference for me. And one of the things that we talked about in what they call Family Week at rehab is the stages of addiction, specifically for him, alcoholism, and that it is quantifiable, similar to the stages of diabetes or the stages of cancer. And one of the stages is you think about it all day, right? You're thinking about when you're going to get your next drink, how are you going to get your next drink. And then another stage is blacking out. And then another stage is when it starts to impede on your relationships and your career. And then the final stage is when it starts to impede on your health. So I really relate to that in terms of American hustle culture, and particularly the addiction to the pursuit of being special. If the relentless pursuit of success is beginning to hinder your personal relationships, and then often for addicts, very often, your financial well-being, big deal, and then your health, right? So if you are blowing all of your money on an addiction and it's getting you into real problems with friends, family, maybe a spouse or a partner, and then also perhaps for actors, you are taking uppers to be up, you're taking downers to be down, you are getting into a consistent habit of that, which is very common in our industry. That even if it's not getting to a place of addiction where the substance that you're being asked to take to stay up or get down isn't causing actual addiction, it is having consistent health ramifications, and those are affecting your mood, your self-esteem, your life experience, your relationships, again, your money, because then you're having to spend more money to feel better. That, to me, sounds like the cycle of addiction.
Absolutely. As you were describing that, what flashed into my mind, and to be clear, I don't know this person. I don't know anything about what conditions or diagnoses they might possibly have, nor how effectively they're actually managing it. However, with all those disclaimers, Christian Bale flashed into my mind, famous as doing some of the method actor stuff, like starving himself for a role, right? And yes, actors do this all the time. They have to sometimes change their bodies for a role. That's part of the job. But to me, that's potentially an example of this. And I guess the reason that person in particular came to my mind is because of some of the extremes that he has gone to physically for his roles. And then also some of the stories that we've heard about emotional dysregulation, let's say, on the set within the family, so there's something there. And I understand he's a talented actor and a very successful actor, and that's great. And potentially an example of this can follow you to the highest peaks of success. As we talked about on the SAG panel, and maybe I think in our previous podcast too, if you don't take care of this stuff now, if you don't start getting curious and interested in how this stuff is affecting you now, You can just take that with you up to the top of the mountain.
The industry will eat you up. That's the truth of it. You think about Christian Bale, I think about my sweet little Tom Holland, my little pushkin, little Tommy Holland, one of the most talented performers ever, and started at age 5 at the West End, training to be a Billy Elliot lead, and he's magnificent. I want to watch Tom Holland exist all day. He's just so great. And reports came out within this last year that he was having a lot of mental health issues and not doing well. And I had nothing but the greatest sense of compassion for him, because he equals a lot of money right now. And his face is synonymous with millions in financing. So I can't imagine that there are a lot of people really looking out for Tom.
Yeah.
I think as long as he's worth so much money and also loves the work, I mean, he loves performing.
Sure.
You can tell when you see him, he just loves it, that it will chew you up and then spit you out. And you don't need to be very old to have seen that happen to several careers. And if you're not careful, that is what occurs. And even if you are careful, it's a machine. It's an industry. And if you're successful, your face becomes money. And people want to extract as much money out of that face for as long as possible, as often as possible. My friends who are number 1 through 5 on the call sheet, who are not even doing physical roles, are getting offered drugs all day on sets, all day and all night. That's just part of the given of it. So even with the best of support, understanding the cost of this pursuit along the way and staying in alignment with your core values is, I think, really worth putting into practice.
I agree. And this can happen at the high levels of any work domain. But as I think you're pointing to with acting, there's this unique conflation, right? Because you are the product. And like you said, your face is the money. So I think it becomes even harder to not fuse with your identity as an actor, becoming your identity as a human, and then feeling the need to do whatever it takes to keep that rolling. And so it can feel spiritual. It can feel in alignment with your core beliefs, especially if you truly and genuinely and hopefully love performing. And it's so important, I think, also to dig up the trauma potentially that's keeping the motor running on that hedonic treadmill. And I was thinking of, when you were describing Tom Holland, have you read the book I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy?
No, but I talk about that subject, not because I'm going to be glad when my mom dies, but because that's a thing that a lot of people experience.
Yeah.
Their parents die, and instead of it being this catastrophic trauma, they find a deep sense of relief in it.
Yeah. I think the title is a little bit of what I might call clickbait.
Well, you got to sell.
Exactly. But it's a very vivid account of childhood trauma and in the context of the acting business. So I highly recommend it.
We'll put it in the show notes. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
One last little stretch of this topic that I want to get to is talking about these core values. What it also makes me think about is this question that everyone asks you as an actor. Why do you want to be an actor? Why are you? Is it for the fame? Is it for the validation? And this core value thing to me is another way of framing why do you act and really getting into your motivations. And there's a few things that have to be considered for actors. There's like literally the love of the work, right? I love acting. Whether or not I made money off of it, I would be doing acting. And then there is, I should or I need to do this job because I do actually need to pay my bills.
Right.
So there's like a logistical, I'm in the union, want to make my health insurance, want to pay some bills off, just bare bones sort of things that are very real. And then I think there is probably and hopefully an ever-changing, what is it about acting that is still satisfying for you?
Yeah.
And I definitely think that I started with the very intention to be special. And if that was being famous, fucking great. But just soothe my childhood neglect, anyone, please. And then I did hit to a point where I felt like, oh, the craft, the process, the work, the exchange, the experience, the continuing further of that mastery is delicious.
Yes. And that's the thing. We can have shoulds around our core values. Like my core values should be connecting and giving and creating. No, your core values are what your core values are. And mastery can be a core value. Achieving and maintaining financial security can be a core value. And there's nothing wrong with that. Values can't be right or wrong. They're yours.
I love it.
So to be clear, when we're talking about all of this, again, spiritual stuff, you can create your own little onion of suffering right there by judging your values or thinking that you have to have certain values or that you have to be an actor because you love to share the beauty of human emotion and empathy. Great, but it's also okay if one of your core values is achieving success. So we're not trying to say here that success is inherently bad or dangerous or that the pursuit of success is bad or dangerous inherently. It's that word relentless, right?
Yes.
There's the problem. Or the pursuing without curiosity about what are my reasons for pursuing this? What am I going to do once I have it? How can I do this in a way that does feel in alignment with my other core values, et cetera, et cetera. And those sort of what and how questions and what am I willing to do? And then paying attention to how it is actually affecting you. Is my relentless pursuit of success harming or helping my relationships? Is my relentless pursuit of success harming or helping my physical health and mental health?
And financial health, I also want to say.
And financial health.
A lot of people are in deep financial illness,
Yeah.
I would say. And that has incredible ramifications on your relationships and on your mental health and your physical health.
Absolutely. Pursuing success can be wonderful, can bring about true self-esteem, not just the like shallow, oh, mommy said I was good, but I'm going to disappoint her tomorrow type of temporary dopamine boost self-esteem. Building mastery is one of the skills that humans have that create true self-esteem. So these things are all potentially very positive. But bringing that mindful curiosity, like you were saying, on a day-to-day basis, which might sound like a lot of work, and at first it is, but when you get in the habit of it, it can become automatic. What's motivating me today? How do I feel today? Maybe today the paycheck is motivating me. If I'm taping for a commercial, it's probably not. If I can convince one person to try this burger and it changes their life, it's not, that's okay.
Financial wellness is a fantastic core value.
Yes.
This makes me think that people listening to this episode to think about what their core values are and maybe do a little writing on it, and also maybe what some of your core beliefs are and do a little writing on it.
Core values and core beliefs.
And core beliefs, because the core beliefs are part of what get triggered in both what they call affirmation and condemnation. So the triggering of a core belief when you get a yes and the triggering of a core belief when you get a no. And that if they are too deeply tied to trauma in either direction, I think can lead to an unhealthy relationship with the career and certainly the pursuit of this profession.
And again, you can have that unhealthy relationship and be extremely successful.
Yes. This is why one of my questions this year that I started asking on the podcast is, what does success look like to you now? Because I think as we experience this career, success starts to feel and look a little different to each of us.
Yes.
Yeah, really great.
For people who want to explore core values, you can Google ACT. It's an acronym, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, core values, and you can find lists, because sometimes people are like, what are core values? And of course, core values could be endless.
Love that. Should we share a couple of our own core values?
Sure.
Okay. Core values that I have are kindness, beauty, creativity, and humor. I value very much.
I think mine are kind of similar. Maybe it's not too surprising. I'd say a connection, humor, definitely, beauty also, creativity also. And there's something about love, which is in the connection, but for me is maybe a little bit deeper.
Yeah. I love that. Core beliefs that I have to work through always. Everyone has like an acting note, and my permanent acting note is, Audrey, you're enough. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that's a reflection of one of my core beliefs is a sense of deficiency, to constantly need to prove that I am enough. And that's why I've had to really look at that in terms of my career, that if the booking of a job validates so deeply I am enough, and the not booking of a job disempowers me very deeply, then that's when I know, like, Audrey, you're a little out of balance. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to say in terms of wrapping up, or do you want to tell them where they can find you? Or
you can find me at Leigh Hall mft.com. It's Leighhall MFT.
M as in Mary.
M as in Mary, F as in Frank, T as in
Tom.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have a couple of book recommendations.
I love it.
Because again, I think that underneath a lot of the hedonic treadmill is trauma. And some of that trauma might be from your family of origin, and some of that trauma might be from living in end stage capitalism.
Or a pandemic.
And yeah.
Please.
Which is partly the result of this. Anyway, one of them is called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera, which I think anybody can dive into. She explains something called polyvagal theory, which is extremely fascinating to me and related to trauma and how trauma lives in the body. And then the other one, and I know that obviously the listeners can't see this, but you can get the sense, Audrey, that this is a big fat book.
Yes.
And it covers a lot of ground, but I couldn't put it down. I was joking that it's my 50 Shades of Grey. The Myth of Normal.
You're such a nerd.
I'm such a nerd. The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, who's a well-known in the field of trauma. And I was like turning pages going, tell me more. Loved this book. And the full title is The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. So even that title, I was like, ooh. So a couple of things that I think relate to this topic a bit. And then one more is Why Buddhism is True.
Yeah.
And all of these touch on all the stuff that we've been talking about.
I'm going to go nerd out to it. I'm so excited because one of my intentions for this podcast is to bring compassion and camaraderie and information. And as we have this conversation today, it really makes me feel like moving in the right direction of helping to encourage and provide perspective for actors to have a healing and healthy relationship with their career, which I think flies in the face of capitalism, American hustle culture.
I totally agree. I could talk about that all day long. I really love your podcast. I really genuinely do. And I just want to say again that your performance in Dope Sick was so good. I think about it occasionally. Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually a great example of really aligning with my values.
I could see that.
With my core values, because in so many ways, as people can say with this podcast, one of my absolute core values is compassion, particularly as it relates to the illness of addiction. And because my brother went through that character aligned with the story that I believe so deeply, which is that anyone can become an addict.
Yeah.
And that it's not a moral and ethical failing on the part of the individual.
Absolutely.
But that it's an illness. And it really aligned with my values to be able to use my life experience with a strong point of view to then use my body and voice to express that anyone can become an addict, and hopefully in doing so provide compassion to addicts and also to those who love addicts.
And I think that's part of what makes the performance so good is it is so compassionate. It's just such a heartbreaking character.
The human experience has a lot of pain.
It's inevitable.
And we've always been seeking relief from that pain. I remember talking to Jesse one time. I was like, I'm thinking about transcendental meditation. And Jesse goes, oh, the cult? And I was like, it's a cult? And he was like, yes. What do you mean it's a cult? It's meditation. And he was like, it's a cult. Look it up. And I was like, God damn it. And so I said, why is it that everyone wants to turn everything into a cult? And he said, because they're in such trauma that anytime anyone finds anything that gives them relief, they cling to it with such fierce desperation. He's a smart guy, that husband of mine.
That's deep.
It's deep, right? And I was like, damn it, I just thought meditating sounded good. Ugh. Why? Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on and giving us any of your time. I'm forever grateful to you for sharing.
Thank you for asking.
Let's get a glass of wine and nerd out.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Doesn't that sound great? I would love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we'll find out. We are debating and discussing. Thanks so much to Leigh Hall. Leigh, I love and adore you. I think you are so fantastic. What a gift you are to our community and to the community at large. Thank you so much for coming on. This episode was produced by Jesse Lumen, my husband, still so handsome. He gets older and gets better looking. Fuck that guy. This episode was mixed and mastered by Thomas Snodgrass. Edited by Jesse Lumen. Show music by Ari De Niro. Theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill. And
Review. Bye.
Matthew Patrick Davis. All right, everyone, don't forget your towel. Thanks to Casting Networks for sponsoring this extra question. CastingNetworks.com/Audrey, promo code Audrey60 for $60 off a premium annual membership. That's like 1 or 2 lunches in Los Angeles. What a steal of a deal. This platform has more high-quality roles that are booked than any other casting service, with more than 177,000 roles and 35,000 projects that were posted last year. A premium annual membership lets you unlock unlimited casting billboard submissions, unlimited photo/video/audio uploads, and exclusive iOS app features. I uploaded an audition 2 days ago on Casting Networks. Thanks, Casting Networks. I hope I book it. Call us with your strike stories or questions at 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70. Listen, guys, I really love your strike stories. There's a lot of information, like rolling around, about how the strikes are no big deal. If you went through the 2007 strike and it absolutely had no effect on your career, or you know someone who went through the 2007 strike and it had absolutely no effect on your career, please, honestly, please call me. I would love some good news. All right, call that in.
Hey, Audrey, this is Julie from Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you so much for your amazing podcast. I listen to it every day. I've learned so much. So I'm in Texas, and I have several friends who are getting reps in LA now with LA managers, and I have 2 questions. One, how much is too much representation? I feel like after the pandemic, we are now able to get reps in different cities and places because of all the self-tapes and online auditions. So I guess it's kind of confusing, like how many agents and managers should I try to get and in what market? And then 2, how does the hierarchy work? Does my LA manager take a cut of what my Texas agent books? Would she oversee him and deal with him? Or would my LA manager just manage my LA representation? And same goes for New York, I guess, and Atlanta, if I was lucky to get reps in those markets too. So thank you so much, Audrey, and for listening.
Hey, Lovey. This is a really great question. I'm glad that you called it in because I think there's a lot of cloudiness around this issue. One of the things that I think you really need to consider is some of what is, I believe, and I'm not saying this is what's happening to you, but I want people to be aware in the local markets. Be aware, local market actors, that something that is happening, unfortunately, is I do believe there is a little bit of predatory behavior that is happening with some of these managers in the larger markets. I'm noticing a trend for managers in larger markets to find out who the local hire actors are, the ones that sort of work all the time in their local market. And then they reach out to them and say, hey, I'm a big fancy manager in a major market, and I would love to sign you. And in signing you, I will get you opportunities and we can help move you to the Los Angeles or New York major markets.
in my experience, that hasn't really proved particularly fruitful unless the thing that was booked was big. And I don't mean like you're in a bunch of episodes of something. I mean, like you got on The Walking Dead and then you became a series regular after 2 seasons. That's sort of big thing that a larger market manager can really take a hold of and get you momentum. Otherwise, unfortunately, my concern is that what they're actually doing is they are promising you the moon and taking your stars in terms of your money that you earn in the local markets. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. The next thing is yes, your manager is going to expect that whatever you make in any market, they're going to get a commission off of that, no matter where you're booking the job. And that's because your manager is managing the whole of your career. The manager usually will take a cut of literally every dime that you make unless it's clear that they don't. So if there's a conversation had like, I don't take commissions off of commercials, or I don't take commissions off of your voiceover, that's a specific discussion that you would probably know about. And if you don't know about it, that's a discussion you would want to go ahead and have before signing with the manager, just getting clear on what exactly they are going to be taking commissions from. But generally speaking, everything that you earn is going to be commissionable by your manager because they're managing the whole of your acting career. I think the thing that you should be interested in looking at that is often a problem is different representation in different markets get grumpy because they're competing for the same job. So an agent in Atlanta will have access often to the Texas and New Mexico breakdowns. So you might audition for something that is in Texas and you might get your Texas agent to get you that audition. And then when you book the job, Atlanta agents will come and say, well, we also submitted you for that. You have to pay us out for that too. And then you have to pay our manager as well. So it can get very complicated unless you have those conversations up front. If you're scared to ask in person, send a little email. Or better yet, if you have a manager who you're going to be paying out anyway, have your manager reach out and clarify. Eventually, what happens as you grow your career is that larger market representation will ask you to lose your local higher representation. Now, that might evolve as local higher representation gets more and more clout and power, but almost entirely that's what I see happen. So just know that's sort of, if you're going to grow your career, that's on the horizon. But yes, paying people out in multiples is pretty common, so just be aware. Thank you so much to our sponsors this year, Casting Networks, for sponsoring this extra question. CastingNetworks.com/Audrey. Promo code Audrey60 for $60 off your premium annual membership.